The rules pages in Golf Monthly magazine have always been among the most popular we run, and for the last 3 years we've run a feature called Rules Every Golfer Should Know. Now I suppose you could argue that we should know all of the rules in an ideal world, but this booklet is 233 pages long. Some of us will know most of the rules, some of us will know some of the rules, but very few people will know all of them. We're at the Faldo course at the Emirates Golf Club in Dubai. There are worse places to shoot a rules video in January, certainly. And we're going to just look at 5 specific ones here that I feel are among the most vital for all golfers to know. And the first one is the scorecard. Just a few things about the scorecard, which is covered under Rule 6.6 in the book. First thing is you don't record your own scores. A marker records your scores, but you then sign for them at the end. If the marker makes a mistake and you don't spot it before you sign, that's, I'm afraid that's tough luck, and it can have serious repercussions for you and your results in that competition. If you sign for a score on any hole lower than that which you actually took, then I'm afraid you will be disqualified. All you have to do on the scorecard is sign for each individual gross score. You don't need to do any of the Stableford calculations. If it's a Stableford, you don't need to add up the scores. All you're signing for is the gross score on each hole. One thing a lot of people think is that you have to initial mistakes on the scorecard. You don't have to do that. You just have to cross out what was wrong and make it very clear what was right next to it. It doesn't have to be initialed. Perhaps the final thing to say here is that you should get the scorecard back as quickly as possible after your round. Now that doesn't mean racing back from way out on the course if you've started on a different tee to the first. It does mean get it back in good time. It doesn't mean sitting around having 2 or 3 beers and then forgetting about the scorecard, coming back up later in the afternoon and popping it in the box. That is unfortunately against the rules. The second rule I want to look at here is the unplayable ball, which is rule number 28. Now, you as the player are the sole judge as to whether or not your ball is unplayable. We all hit it into places we don't really want to quite often, but you could, if you wanted, declare your ball unplayable from the perfect lie in the middle of the fairway, though quite why you would want to do that, I don't really know. So you are the sole judge. You've hit it into some trees or into some bushes. What are your options? Well, the first option is to go back to where you last played from and play again under penalty of 1 stroke. So if it was your tee shot, you hit the ball, can't then play it, go back to the tee, you would be playing your 3rd shot from the tee. The second option is to drop within 2 club lengths of where your ball is lying, but not nearer the hole. Sometimes that will get you clear enough to then have a shot, other times it won't. Again, that is under penalty of 1 stroke. And your third option, also under penalty of 1 stroke, is to keep the ball directly on a line between you and the flag, go back as far as you like on that line and drop there. So sometimes that might take you perhaps out onto another fairway where you can then play back over the top of some trees. So in theory, you always have 3 options at your disposal. In practice, sometimes because of the geography of the course or where your ball is, there may only be 1 realistic option, and that is to go back to where you last played from. The third one I want to look at is the provisional ball rule, which is rule 27.2, one of golf's most useful and practical rules. The idea is that if you hit your ball somewhere where you're not sure whether you're going to find it, as long as it's not in a water hazard, you can hit another ball from the tee to save you potentially having to walk all the way back. Before you hit that ball, you must declare it a provisional ball. Phrases like, I'm just going to hit another, or I'm just going to reload, may be fine with a fun game with your mates and a friendly round, but in a competition you have to actually declare it a provisional or say you're going to play under rule 27.2. You then hit the second ball. If you find the original ball, the provisional is cancelled straight away. You cannot switch between the two. If you find your original ball somewhere that is pretty unsavoury, you can't decide to then play your provisional in the middle of the fairway. You have to do whatever you need to do with the original ball. Even if, unfortunately, that might mean walking back to the tee ultimately anyway. But hopefully, the provisional ball, more often than not, will save you long walks, sometimes embarrassing walks with other people standing there getting very frustrated that you didn't hit one in the first place. So, for the sake of everybody involved, if you're in any doubt as to whether you're going to find your ball, hit a provisional, make sure you declare it a provisional before you hit it. Fourth one I want to look at just briefly is nearest point of relief. Which a lot of people I've played with perhaps interpret as nicest point of relief, because they feel as though the lie that the nearest point is going to put them in isn't really fair enough, so they want something a bit better than that. Unfortunately, the rules don't allow you that leeway. The nearest point of relief is the nearest point of relief. There's no leeway if it's a bare lie or whatever. You're getting relief only from whatever you're getting relief from, which might be, on a course like this, here in Dubai, might be the cart path. You take your relief. If the ball then ends up on a bare patch close to that, I'm afraid that's just tough. I've played at courses where there are paths and bushes right next to the path, and often the nearest point of relief would be in the bush. So unfortunately, that is the nearest point of relief. You don't get relief from bushes on a golf course. So in such circumstances on that particular hole, most people just then opted to play the ball as it was lying on the path. So really, just to stress, the nearest point of relief is just one place, and it's not negotiable. It is the nearest point of relief, not the nicest point of relief. The fifth and final one is just a few of the rules governing bunkers, some of the key things that you can and can't do in bunkers. The first really is to say that you cannot ground your club in the bunker. So you can't touch the sand at address with your club. You can't clip the sand on your backswing. The only time you can hit the sand is as you play the shot at impact. Now, if you do clip the sand either on your backswing or at address, unfortunately you will be penalised. Loose impediments in bunkers, I'm afraid you can't touch those. So that's natural things like pine cones, twigs, acorns, leaves. I'm afraid if your ball is in amongst those in a bunker, that is just tough. You have to deal with that. You can move man-made objects like paper cups or sweet wrappers, that's fine, but not loose impediments. The final thing I want to talk about in this little bit about bunkers is stones, what you can and can't do with those. They obviously come in all sizes, from this kind of pebble size to a little bit of grit. It doesn't really matter. There are no size definitions within the rules. A stone is a stone, and they are classed as loose impediments under the rules of golf, which means in a bunker you are not allowed to touch them unless a local rule is in force. Fortunately, a lot of golf clubs, maybe even most golf clubs, have a local rule that allows you to remove stones from bunkers just as you could remove a paper cup or a Mars bar wrapper or whatever. And that, from a safety perspective, is probably a very good idea, especially if the particular golf course has a lot of stones in the bunkers. It seems an unnecessary risk to force you to play a shot that may involve a stone flying up and hitting you in the face. So always check the scorecard at the course you're playing at. If it says that stones may be removed, then that's fine. If it doesn't, then I'm afraid you cannot touch them.